A few months ago, I decided to invite my friends over to my house. So we were just hanging out when one of them asked to borrow a charger. So simply I passed her mine without hesitation. In this moment, I'd come to realize they had changed their Apple's iPhone 15 charger ports. Like, when did that happen? I felt slightly embarrassed that I couldn't provide her with something so simple as a charger, but looking back later, it kind of sounded stupid. In that moment, it wasn't the fact that she reacted weirdly or the awkward pause that really got to me, but really it was the fact that in that moment, I'd impulsively wished for the iPhone 15. I was ready to spend almost $200 extra just to avoid that awkward interaction. But inevitably, I brushed off that feeling and I went on with my night. Ironically, a few weeks later, I was sitting in my U.S. history class, dozing off because it was the last period of the day and it was also U.S. history, when my teacher started talking about consumerism in the 1950s. She talked about its effects in society, such as isolation and materialism. Now, this really caught my attention as I had just experienced the whole charger catastrophe. We learned about how in the early 1950s, only about 9% of Americans would possess a TV, but that number shot up to about 90% in just a few years. Now, I want you guys to picture an average teenage girl in the 1950s. Maybe she has a pixie cut, a fitted blouse, or a flowy skirt, whatever works for you. So she had just happened to be going to school the day after an I Love Lucy episode aired. Now, for those of you who don't know what that is, that would probably be just as important as a Grey's Anatomy episode airing. That entire day, that girl felt completely out of place and isolated. From class period, from friend group to another, she felt indifferent. So maybe this is what I was feeling earlier with the charger. It's weird how history is repeating itself. Turns out, humans have grown with an us versus them mentality. A long time ago, we would find comfort in hunting, traveling, and just living with each other because this increased our chances of survival. The world has changed drastically though, but our minds have not kept up with this. Us with the iPhone 15 and them with the iPhone 14, or similarly, us that have watched the I Love Lucy episode and them who haven't. We find comfort in putting ourselves in groups, but this has come to a negative aspect. Even so, finding our socioeconomic status has been just one more criteria that has segmented society. Just one more differentiator between us and them. Robert H. Frank, an expert in economics and wealth inequality, says that the consumption of goods that display your socioeconomic wealth or power has been growing to unsustainable heights. He also begins to explain how this is increasing the gap between the rich and the poor in the U.S. Access to resources becomes luxurious, political influence is skewed, therefore leaving the poor neglected. Socioeconomic power is such an influential thing in an individual's life, and therefore we must assess it and put value to it as it is affecting society. It is making it less inclusive, and we must put a stop to that. Now, what if I told you you could be a building block in all of this? You could find yourself and make a more inclusive society. The next time you go buy your next pair of shoes or maybe designer pair of jewelry, you really reflect on why you went out to go and get that. Now, obviously, we all have a right to treat ourselves, but we should reach for a fuller mindfulness and reflect on if we would want our society to tie our possessions to our value. We shouldn't let something as simple as a charger port dictate the distance between one another. Thank you.